Our fundamental goal is to end extreme poverty in the world. And we just released a report that says that if the warming continues as it is now, by 2030, an additional 100 million people will be plunged into poverty through difficulties with agriculture, poor health outcomes, and inability to respond to natural disasters. And so this is directly connected to our mission, but we're also at the World Bank Group, we're human beings, and we see some of the things that were just talked about on the show. We see droughts. We see potentially 40% of the land that grows maize and corn right now in sub-Saharan Africa being unable to do so by 2030. So we see so many different issues that we deal with every day, energy, agriculture, health, education. We see so many things under threat because of climate change that we have no choice not only to act, but act in a huge way. We recently pledged $29 billion total of spending on climate-related issues by 2020.
I mean, there are people who argue that, let's take some of these causes. Let's take extreme weather conditions, natural disasters. They say actually it'd be cheaper, and we are getting better at dealing with natural disasters, that when we have flooding now, fewer people die. Wouldn't it be better to spend the money on that rather than slowing down the global economy?
Oh, well, we have to do both. And so, we have to really get away from the notion that if you tackle climate change, you will slow down the global economy. The key is to get the incentives right. First thing we have to do is to get prices right. There is an actual cost to putting carbon in the air, and now there is such widespread agreement that we need a price on carbon. And this is not just environmental activists. We see the heads of many energy companies saying, we know it's necessary, we know you got to do it, let's just go ahead and do it. So you get a price on carbon. If you get the kind of then incentives in place for low-carbon solutions, I think you're going to see the development of many new innovations and technologies that will actually drive economic growth. And so we can't fall into the trap of saying, on the one hand, you have economic growth, on the other hand, you have battling climate change. In the battle against climate change, we both have to mitigate, meaning we have to reduce the amount of carbon put in the air, but we also have to adapt. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do, for example, in Mozambique. Every time there's an extreme weather event in Mozambique, we lose many, many people because the systems are not in place. We have to build those systems, but at the same time, we have to reduce the amount of carbon we're putting in the air.
A carbon price and indeed alternative energy sources mean more expensive energy, and that is a cost to consumers and it is a cost to business, isn't it?
Well, if you look at something very straightforward. So when I joined the World Bank Group in July of 2012, Al Gore, former Vice President Al Gore, came to me and was very excited that the cost of solar had gone down as low as 15 cents in some places. Well, today, the cost is around 5 or 6 cents. So just in the 3.5 years since I've been in this job, the cost of installed solar has gone down by 2/3. So I think that with potential expansion of solar, with expansion of wind, with the exploitation of geothermal possibilities, for example, in Ethiopia. There's a major project going forward in Ethiopia. Less than 10% of the hydroelectric capacity in sub-Saharan Africa has been exploited, whereas in the rich nations, in the OECD countries, 90% of hydroelectric potential has been exploited. So there's a lot that we can do to clean up our energy while at the same time we promote economic growth.
Do you agree with people from what used to be called let's call it the developing world, who say, look, most of this carbon's been put there by countries like America, Europe, now China. They're the ones who've got to pay for the cleanup, and that it's wrong to hold back those developing economies in their energy consumption?
Well, the argument is complex, but here's how I see it. What the African countries are saying is, on the one hand, we did almost nothing to put the carbon in the air, and when extreme weather events happen, like droughts or flooding, we're impacted the most. That's not fair. And this is why in Copenhagen, when there was an agreement, the agreement also, when there was not an agreement on climate as a whole, there was an agreement that the wealthy countries would provide $100 billion a year by 2020. Now, we think there's a very credible path toward getting to that $100 billion. And we at the World Bank Group, as I've suggested, have pledged that we would provide as much as $29 billion. So it is extremely important that we do this in a fair and just way, which means we say to the poor countries, yes, you deserve energy. Yes, you deserve to develop. Yes, you deserve to be able to provide jobs and health and education to your people. But we've got to do it in a way that is more and more decoupled from the burning of fossil fuels. We've actually seen great examples of this happening in many places in the world. Now what we've got to do is get the incentives right so that that companies all over the world, for example, are saying, hey, you know, China has committed to a national carbon trading program by 2017. So any company that wants to do business in China better start thinking about low-carbon solutions. We see that happening, and as that happens, I think we can see a very bright future where economies are growing, but in a way that's much cleaner than in the past.
Dr. Kim, thank you very much for joining us.